All right, good evening, everybody, and thank you so much for coming to the regular council meeting for August 23rd, 2023. I'm going to go ahead and open us up right now, and we are going to be calling our closed session to order in a moment here. So we're going to go ahead and start with a roll call, followed by any public comments specifically on the 3 closed session items we have for tonight. So we do expect this is going to be a lengthy closed session. I just wanted to warn everybody in advance. So, if you want to go get a coffee or anything, you probably have plenty of time to get that done. Once we are concluded with closed session, we will reconvene in the open session and go on with the rest of the agenda. So at this time, we are called to order. And if we could start with a roll call.
Councilmember Lerman.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Douglas.
Present.
Councilmember Hilberg.
Here.
Councilmember McCauley.
Here.
And Mayor Burris.
Here. All right, with that, do we have any public comment on the closed session items this evening? I'll give us just a second in case anybody online has comment. And just for those who might not be aware, the closed session items tonight are relating to the city manager recruitment, the legal matter concerning Colfax net, and the legal matter concerning Snapdragon provisions.
And I don't see anything online.
All right, well, with that, we will go ahead and move into the closed session. I'm closing that public comment. Thank you, everybody. We will see you in a few. Call the open session to order. We have nothing to report from closed session this evening, and we can move directly into the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'll please join me.
Struck out.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, can we get a roll call, please?
Councilmember Lerman.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Douglas.
Present.
Councilmember McCauley.
Here.
And Councilmember Hilberg is momentarily stepped out. And Mayor Burris.
Here. All right, give it 1 second here.
Here.
All right, we'll go ahead and
Councilmember Hilberg.
Here.
Perfect. Sorry, I didn't see you step away. All right, item 2E, approval of the agenda order. Does anybody want to make any adjustments to the agenda order this evening? There was no reportable action.
When you said I didn't have to pull that, maybe just to change the letter.
All right, well, with that, I'll accept a motion to approve the agenda order.
Move. Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Those abstained? All right, motion passes. Item 2F, turning it over to Mick.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This pertains to disclosing. Am I going to echo? Okay. Conflicts of interest. This has to do with a new law that was passed, SB 1439, which requires council members to recuse themselves and not participate in any matter involving a license, permit, or entitlement for use when the applicant is someone who has contributed $250 or more to their campaign in the previous 12 months. So I wanted to bring this up during this session because it doesn't only pertain to council members. It used to only be for appointed bodies. It's now for elected bodies and members of the public. So if members of the public have contributed $250 or more to a campaign within the previous 12 months and they have an application before the council, they cannot participate. They must recuse themselves. I have to say, I don't know where the FPPC gets jurisdiction to regulate the public. I think it's unconstitutional, but that's what the law says. So I just had to bring it up. So there's a couple of questions that you have to ask yourself every time you read an agenda now. First question, has anybody contributed $250 to my campaign in the prior 12 months? The answer is no, don't worry about it. You can forget about it. Public has to ask itself the same thing. Have I contributed anything to a political campaign in the last 12 months? And do I have a permit application pending before the council? If yes, can't participate. So you got to be very careful about that. I don't know how they're going to enforce it, but that's what the law says. If you have gotten a contribution, the next question is, does it pertain, is there an item on the agenda that pertains to a license, permit, or application for use? And I thought, that's pretty broad, and it really is. Look at tonight's agenda. Is there anything on there that might fall within that? And when I looked at it at first, I said, no, probably not. Item 3F is a lease. A lease is a contract. A contract is technically, under the new regulations, an entitlement for use. So every time you see a contract on the agenda, now you have to ask yourself, does this involve somebody who contributed to my political campaign? And if so, did they contribute more than $250? And are they asking for some type of entitlement? If you get to that point, please give me a call and we'll figure out whether you do or do not have to recuse yourself. If you have the conflict, you do have to recuse yourself, not participate, not try to influence. And the final part of this one is, if the answer to those questions is yes, and it involves somebody who's contributed $250 to your campaign and they have a permit application, you cannot accept a contribution from them of $250 or more for the next 12 months. So this new rule looks back 12 months and looks forward 12 months. So you have to disclose the conflict, and you cannot accept money for the following 12 months after the entitlement use is determined. Clear as mud, I know, but that's a new law.
Thank you, Mike. I'm going to make this easy. Has anybody on this council received $250 from anybody for their campaign in the last 12 months? All right, there we go.
No, first question is no, that's good.
So that clears us up for the foreseeable future. Moving to the consent calendar. Matters on the consent calendar are considered routine and non-controversial in nature. They'll be moved on one blanket motion. Anybody may pull an item from consent for discussion. Would anybody in the public or the council like to pull an item from consent this evening for discussion? All right, I'm giving online a moment to participate since there's a slight delay.
And there's nothing online.
Perfect. All right. I will entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Move to approve the consent calendar.
I second it.
All right. All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Those abstained? All right. Motion passes. Moving to agency reports, starting with Placer County Sheriff's Office.
Madam Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of the council, my name is John Tanneromi. I'm a deputy with the Sheriff's Office assigned to Colfax. So I'll make this quick. We aren't to the end of August, and I guess we didn't have a meeting 2 weeks ago, so I'm going to cover the July stats real quick since that's customary for us. In July, between the 1st and the 31st, there were 172 incidents in the city of Colfax, 17 reports taken, 10 traffic stops, 17 transient related calls. So it's probably up a little from the last month. That compares to, in the same period in the county, we had 4,500 calls and 575 reports taken. So again, we're all part of the same team. We, if you don't see us in the city, it's because we're in a neighboring beat serving the community at large. Does anybody have any questions about that?
Anything
Okay.
from council?
Any questions? So one thing I want to bring up is William Stevenson. It's been in the news a lot. The state hospitals are trying to dump this individual into our community as a transient, and that is unacceptable. He was released in 2017 and he reoffended. He went back. He is a sexually violent predator. And I encourage everyone to follow our Facebook for any information and be vocal about this. This is our community. And what makes Placer County such a great place to live is that we work together with stuff like this, right? He's not from here. He doesn't belong here. We don't need him here. And the district attorney's office and the sheriff's office and the people of this community agree. So if you have any questions, you can follow along with the Facebook and look for guidance. They hosted an open session meeting on a Monday from 9:30 to 11, so nobody could attend. And that, I can't speak to that, but maybe that happened as well. So just keep your eyes on this, and if you have anything that you feel compelled enough to add, there will be more open forums, and Facebook is how you're going to find out where that stuff is.
Before you go, what would be your definition when you said this community?
The county as a whole.
County. Because he
Right.
was originally projected to go to El Dorado County, and they made the argument that he feared for his safety in El Dorado County. So they felt that Placer County, being the only other address they could find for him, was the appropriate place to dump him.
We could feel the same way here.
And he's been staying outside of what prison is it? So he's been staying outside of San Quentin.
The only connection to Placer County is the state.
Yes.
No, it makes sense.
So it's one of those things where, right, it's like a forest fire. We don't want forest fires in our community. So we work hard to prevent those things. So we should work hard to prevent this. And if we all work hard together, I think we'll succeed.
Well, they're asking for the next deadline for emails and statements is Friday. If I remember seeing something they put out on social media that they had another deadline
Correct.
on Friday for emails and stuff. And I know that the DA had put something out today that had links to the pages with how to submit your comments and stuff, but the deadline was on Friday.
The deadline's on Friday. Any other questions? No? Okay, the rivers are still running fast and cold. So we are still rescuing people from the rivers. Sergeant Griffiths runs our dive team. This year has been exceptional for us just due to the flows and the water temperatures. So I know we all like going to the river. We all have friends that come up so they can go to the river with us. Just be sure that you're being very cautious. You're wearing your personal flotation devices. And this year especially, like if someone isn't good at swimming, make sure they have a personal flotation device or they stay out of the rivers this year because they are very dangerous this year. And other than that, I think that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, CHP.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, City Council. Officer Jason Lyman, Gold Run CHP, Public Information Officer. I don't have a whole lot to brief you on this time, but so far during August, we have issued 226 citations, have handled 26 crashes, and have made 4 arrests in our little area here. So we're trying to be very diligent out there, keeping on patrol and trying to keep working very hardly up the brake check area, trying to focus on that. We had another brake fire this afternoon that thankfully didn't end up going anywhere, but we are making very diligent efforts on patrolling that and trying to keep that under control because we know that's a very volatile situation at this time of the year. So does anybody have any questions for me?
I think just one. Somebody that lives here just came up to me and talked to me on the street about, is there a way that we could make it standard for the trucks to middle of the road rather than on the shoulder when they're on fire? Has that ever been consideration? Because to me, it makes a lot of sense.
Well, the one issue with that would be that biggest majority of the trucks don't catch on fire when they're driving down the road. It's when they finally do pull over and stop that the heat builds up enough to actually for the flames to catch hold. It's not always the case, but trying to just stop a big rig in the middle of the lane is going to cause other issues too. People will crash into that. But I don't know how there's no law that says they can do one way or the other. But most of the time they do pull over to the shoulder And I know that Caltrans and stuff is working on getting some more trees cut and brush cleared and trying to open those shoulders up as they go. But it's a lengthy process, and time they get to one end, it's grown back at the other, and they got to repeat that. So. Yeah. Yeah, when there's a big rig fire, there's no good answer for that. But they're, hopefully some of them are using good judgment and trying to pull off in wider areas that, there are a lot of areas that are, paved shoulders and wider than others. And the Caltrans has done a lot of cutting along the road on there. A few years ago, there was a ton of trees that were like even hanging over the shoulder when they'd pull in there and park, and there's trees hanging over the top of them. The biggest majority of that has been removed, and they're constantly working on more things like that.
Mike, I have a question. Do we have the authority to subject people to fines for negligence that cause car fires in our city limits?
You could adopt an ordinance that does that, yes.
So if we adopted an ordinance that fined them $100,000 every time they have a negligent brake fire within our city limits, you think it would stop? Because we are popular for that. Well, then maybe we'll make some money. Because apparently stupid isn't fixed with money. Yeah, I kind of want to explore that. I think maybe we should bring that back up as a topic later.
All right.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Placer County Fire Department, CAL FIRE.
Good evening, council, members of the public. For the month of July, our stats, Fire Station 30 here in Colfax had 113 incidents. 82 of those were within Colfax city limits, and our company 36 volunteers had a response of 14 for about 17%. This month for training for the volunteers, we focused on rope rescue skills as well as expanded scope EMT skills. And we have some new expanded scope medical equipment coming for the volunteers the next 2 weeks. On July 28th, we had a structure fire on Buckeye Place. The Colfax engines from Station 30 arrived within 6 minutes and found a working attic fire. They were able to quickly extinguish it, and they found the cause to be a faulty attic fan. We've had a very active weather the last couple of weeks. The northern region of CAL FIRE received over 12,000 lightning strikes over the past 10 days or so, causing a multitude of fires, mostly in the North State. We did have a few fires around here, a couple of single tree strikes that were put out very quickly. The biggest fire was over on the Nevada County side. It was called the Highway Incident with the Tahoe National Forest for 35 acres. And we had a heavy presence there protecting the community of Washington. And right now we have the Nevada Yuba Placer unit of CAL FIRE. We have 12 fire engines, 4 hand crews, and 2 chief officers that are up in Humboldt and Siskiyou counties assisting with the fires up there. I'd be happy to answer any questions anybody might have.
Anything from council? All right. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for getting that medical equipment,
Absolutely.
and that's really going to help our community with that longer ambulance response time.
Absolutely. You're
Thank you.
welcome. Yes, sir.
An increase in fentanyl overdoses?
Hey, Jim, could you ask that at the podium? I want to make sure the folks at home can hear the question. It's a good one.
Serious. My question is, have we noticed an increase in fentanyl overdosing in our area?
Yeah, I think there's been a steady increase of fentanyl overdoses over the past few years. I would think that our sheriff's partners might have some better stats on that, but it has definitely increased in our area. Sure. Off the top of my head, I don't, I'm not sure. I'd have to do some research on that. You're welcome.
We've had 2 overdoses in the city in the last month that I know of that were fatalities. And a few more that weren't.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, we're going to move to our nonprofits at this point, starting with the Chamber of Commerce.
I'm Mayor, City Council members, Tim Ryan, President of the Colfax Area Chamber of Commerce. Just kidding. I'm sorry. That's just a habit. But member of the chamber. And what I want to do tonight is to introduce our new chamber president, Amanda Palmquist. And we are very fortunate to have her on board as our new president. Very energetic and brings a lot to the table. So, yeah, I want to have you guys welcome her on as our chamber president.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you. Thank you for having me. And I'm sorry, I know Tim was really good at coming, I think to almost every city council meeting, and the summer just got away from me, but we will be making an effort to come at least once a month. So I just want to let you guys know, first off, thank you, Fred and Rini, for coming back and doing Railroad Days. We're really excited for all the business that it's going to be bringing to Colfax. And I know everybody looks forward to that every year. So we've been doing on Friday nights a summer market, which started in July and is going to go, it's turning into a fall market. So it's Friday nights in front of the chamber from 4 to 7. And we've been trying to have live music. It's not always working, but we do have our vendors that come that have been steady, and some people selling hot dogs. But our goal is to bring a spot to the community on Friday nights that people can come, they can bring their kids, they can hang out at the lawn, they can, shop or go grab a pizza from town and just provide like a safe place and a place maybe for teenagers to come. We have some events coming up in October. We're going to do an Oktoberfest on the 14th. It's going to be family friendly, and that we're going to have vendors and stuff specifically for the younger kids, and then a beer garden and pretzels and that kind of thing. And we're trying to get some German folk music in. Then on the 21st of October, we're trying to do something too. We're kicking around the idea of having something monthly. So October is going to be a chili cook-off, and we're going to talk to some of our members at our businesses into being judges. And then so we're going to start hitting the pavement and talking to people around here and see who wants to submit, chili and do all that. And then we will also be starting a coffee and conversations again for the businesses around here, so they can have a space to get together and talk about what's working, what's not working, and then what we can do maybe to bring new businesses in for some of the places that are closed. And then the visitor center is open from 9 to 2, Monday through Saturday. And Amy got a lot of new stuff specifically for Railroad Days and that kind of thing. And then last but not least, we are gearing up, trying to figure out Winterfest right now. We talked to the people who did the fireworks last year, and they said that we can do a 5-minute show for $7,000 would be the cost. So we were wondering if the city could help with that.
I don't foresee that being an issue. Oh, sorry, my mic was off. I don't foresee that being an issue. As we get closer to the event and you guys are ready to actually make that reservation,
Okay.
If you could get with staff so we can make it an official agenda item, and then we can go over it at that time.
Okay, sounds good. Are there any questions?
Just wanted to say, the band you guys added last Friday was excellent.
Oh,
They did
thank
a
you.
great job the whole time.
Malarkey, it really
Yeah,
was.
Malarkey, they did a great job. We
Thank
got to
you.
sit at the art walk and listen to them all the time. It was great.
Nice, thank you. I'm glad.
Glad to see that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it has been steady. We're excited.
Wonderful. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right. Do we have any other nonprofits here this evening that would like to make a report? All right, seeing none. At this time, we're going to go ahead and take a quick 5-minute break. I know you guys just came back in, but we've been going for an hour and a half. So I just want to give everybody a chance to use the lavatory, and we'll come right back. Let's turn the fans on when we come back as well. All right, I'm going to go ahead and call the open session back to order. At this time, we're on item number 6A in particular, which is the introduction and first reading of the ordinance of City Council amending Colfax Municipal Code 5.32.080 to allow the retail sale of adult use cannabis. At this time, we're going to go ahead and start with a presentation from staff.
I'll give a brief presentation, Madam Mayor. This proposed amendment to the Colfax Municipal Code changes one word. It makes a one-word deletion from the Colfax Municipal Code, but if adopted by the council, will have a profound effect on retail cannabis sales in Colfax. Basically, what staff has brought forward is an amendment that will delete the word medicinal from Colfax Municipal Code Section 5.32.080A1. And in doing so, that will allow the city to issue one retail license that can for the sale of medicinal cannabis or adult use cannabis or both. And how does it do that? Well, it's very interesting. I think Jim Dion brought it up. He said, why don't you just delete the word medicinal? And as I looked at it, I thought, that really accomplishes what staff was instructed to do because the definition of it's the definition of commercial cannabis business. Retailer includes a commercial cannabis business. Commercial cannabis business includes both medicinal and adult use. So deleting that word will allow the city to issue a retail license for the sale of adult use cannabis. And I say it will allow the city. It doesn't require the staff to issue the license. The ordinance is not self-executing.
Mhm.
So if the council adopts the ordinance, then staff will also it will also be accompanied by a resolution authorizing the issuance. You don't put a specific retailer in your license, that retailer can change. They could change business form, something like that. But no matter what, if you adopt this amendment, you will still only be able to issue one retailer license in Colfax. And the council can decide from year to year what that license is going to entail. You could say 1 year, we're going to allow medicinal. 1 year, you're going to allow adult use. 1 year, you're going to allow, you can change it as time goes on to suit your needs. Process is fairly simple. We've been down this road before. Tonight is the introduction. You can either waive the first reading or read it in its entirety. It's only a one sentence change. So it wouldn't take very long to read. Conduct a public hearing, hear what the public has to say. And if it pleases the council, waive the first reading and conduct a public hearing, waive the first reading, put the matter over to the next meeting for potential adoption. If the council adopts, and I'm anticipating it'll be on the consent calendar on September 13th. If the council adopts on September 13th, as we anticipate, the ordinance does not go into effect for 30 days. So the earliest the city could issue a license for adult use sales would be October 13th. Why 30 days? That's what the law says. The law says ordinances do not go into effect until 30 days after their adoption. That is to allow people who object to the ordinance to pursue a referendum. They can, if the council can adopt the ordinance, the public can say, we don't like it. We're going to try for a referendum. If they get, I think it's 25% of the signatures of registered voters in the city, they can stop the ordinance from moving forward. That's why the 30 days, we have no flexibility on that. Other than that, I think everything else has been said on this, and it's probably time to open the public hearing and hear what the public has to say.
All right, well, with that, I will open the public hearing and we will accept public testimony at this time. Just so that I can make sure that we establish, within the Brown Act, our time limitations. Can I get a show of hands of those that are looking to make public testimony on this item this evening? Okay. Okay, then I think we're fine with our 5-minute limitation. There is no applicant.
Yes.
For the sake of this hearing in particular anyway. Well, with that, we're ready to accept public testimony. Who wants to go first?
Hi, I'm Melinda Neely, and I've been in Colfax since 2006. According to the National Highway Traffic and Safety Association, marijuana is the second most common drug involved in accidents. Alcohol still remains in the top spot. While over the last 10 years, most drugs have seen an increase in the use while driving. Marijuana has seen the highest increase. This number is difficult to measure with accuracy since there is no good road size test for marijuana. These fine gentlemen, they sacrifice our lives to keep our community safe. They are out on the street and see what goes on out there every day. If you vote yes on recreational marijuana, you are not thinking about safety. You are putting everyone's lives in danger, including you and your family. When you buy marijuana, they have all the warning signs on the receipts. The more accessible marijuana is, the more it will be used. The statistics shows more accidents, higher thefts, and more crime. It will raise the cost in our town for emergency service. According to a study reported by the National Institute on Drug Abuse, employees who test positive for marijuana had 55% more industrial accidents, 85% more injury, and 75% greater absentee compared to those who test negative. Also impacting the bottom line are decrease in proactivity. Long-term cannabis users tend to produce less dopamine, a chemical in the brain that leads to motivation. Please, before you vote, think of the consequences. Look at the big picture. And please think of our safety. Please vote no on recreational cannabis. And what is your motive? Is it to raise money? It's going to cost us more money in the long run. And also, less people be more productive. Thank you.
Thank you. Who'd like to go next?
Hello, Mayor, Council. Marijuana is not safe to consume and drive. We all can agree on that. But the big picture is not about people consuming and injuring themselves or others. That's a concern, and it's a valid concern. The bigger picture is, where's the money going when they're not buying it from a licensed dispensary? Who is it going to? Where is it going? Every sale from a licensed dispensary is on camera, and it's tracked through a track and trace system we have to abide by, that doesn't miss a gram. Our money goes to the community. The deliveries that go on that are legal deliveries, none of them are on camera. They happen every day in your community, and they're delivered to any house in your community. So the safety issue is more about the finances of where the money's going. And if it's going to an illegal person or even a cartel that's highly involved in cannabis cultivation and retail sales, illegal, then it's not safe in that manner. So I can agree with you totally that it's not safe for people to use cannabis and drive or do some activities, but that's not the issue. It's not. The safety is for our country and our future, and the businesses that are local and controlled and American ran. So we don't have any foreign connections or multi-state connections. We're one business, one family business, no ties. That's not to say that every license is like that. You're actually pretty lucky to have a license like ours in your community, rather than a license that has no face and just has drivers in regular cars driving to anybody's house any day of the week from, I think it's 8 to 10 at night that they can do that. So I totally agree with your concerns, but it's not really, that concern is well founded. But my concern is the illegal part. It's not seen. It's uncontrollable. Right now in California, every house can grow marijuana indoors. The only things that can be banned is outdoor cultivation by cities and counties. They have to allow everybody to grow their 6 plants and they have to allow it indoors. The fact that it's put indoors is a damage to your community and is unsafe for the future of your grandchildren and your children, because it's not good for the environment. And that in itself is a safety issue. So there's lots of safety issues about it, but I think that you need to like address more of a broader range of the concerns of why they legalized it in the first place. Everybody knew it was not safe, but if some kid gets some cannabis from their parent who got it from a store and overdoses, which is a horrible thing, it's still safer than if they got it on the street and got it from their parents and overdosed. Okay, so the same scenario is more safe if they buy it from a licensed storefront rather than on the street from a garden that somebody grew in their house that you'll never see a dime from. So that's just a broader range of safety. You know, it is unsafe, and we can all agree it is unsafe, but there's other things that are more important than, you know, and just as equally unsafe. And I think controlling it, taxing it, and regulating it is the safest way. And that's all we're doing.
Thank you.
That's all.
Deanne Roberts, a resident of the city of Colfax. And I would like to point out a couple of headlines that I've seen. This is after the July 26th meeting, where the Auburn Journal says that Colfax to expand cannabis policy to include adult use. That didn't say anything except in the article about having a public hearing. When I read this, I said, okay, this is a foregone conclusion. This is going to happen. Then in the Colfax Connections, Will Stockwin wrote that the council agrees to allow GSPC to sell adult use cannabis. And he wrote in the first paragraph, the Dion family, owners of the Golden State Patient Care, the city's medical cannabis retail operation, has been appearing at the public podium, pursuing the right to also sell adult use cannabis for years. Their persistence finally paid off at the July 26th meeting. And he has the headline, Colfax agrees to allow GSPC to sell adult use cannabis. So my only statement about that is that if these indications are true, gone are the days of the war on drugs. We now have city officials who are encouraging the sale of drugs. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Thank you, Council. Nick Dion, Canyon Way, Colfax. If anybody who thinks that it's really that unsafe, I invite to our store any time of day that we're open. I can give you a badge to come in. You can see how we operate. You can see how secure the products are. And that's all. I would invite the city council manager. The old manager used to pop in and talk, you know, and it's just nice to let you guys at ease and see how it works. It's not some fancy drug place that some people might think it is. It's a very controlled environment. And that's all.
Thank you. All right, do we have anybody else in the room who'd like to make a comment? All right, we can go to online.
We have one online comment at this time from Denise Helling Brooks, who states, I'm in support of a recreational dispensary in Colfax. I know there I can get safe quality products that I know are safe and not laced with fentanyl or anything else that could kill me or any other community member, not to mention the revenue this can and will bring to the city. And there's no other comments at this time.
All right, thank you, Marguerite. With that, I will go ahead and close the public hearing, bring it back to council for comments, questions, and discussion. Larry?
Yeah, I just would like to repeat what I said during the last meeting. People are going to find their marijuana. I think that the war on drugs has been too focused on supply and not at all on demand. And that the first step towards dealing with demand is regulation. And that means that somebody needs to be licensed. Their product needs to be tested and needs to be graded. Their sources are audited. Every transaction is on a camera. And that brings at least some of the business that I believe is going to happen anyway out into the open. And I would rather see it happen that way. And I'm in support of the change to the ordinance that Mick read for those reasons.
Anybody else have comments? Well, we've certainly entertained this topic many times over a number of years. And over that time, I think I have made more than sufficient comments to the merits of why this change should be made. I don't think that anyone cares to hear them again. This is a subject in which I would say at least 90% of the people who participate in the discussion have an opinion, a very strong opinion, and typically an unwavering opinion. And we have delved into those very deeply. And yes, at the last meeting, the council on a 3-2 vote did direct the staff to come forward with a changed ordinance for review and approval through the public hearing process that is applicable to all ordinance approvals. So on that note, in accordance with the structure of our meeting tonight and all meetings where we approve ordinance changes, I will bring this to the council now for action. Do we have a motion?
I so move that we approve the change to the ordinance as Mick wrote it.
Yeah, tonight is really the introduction, and I think that if I were to couch it, would it be to introduce the ordinance 552 by title only, conduct a public hearing, waive the first reading, and continue for a second reading and possible adoption on September 13th. That's the recommended staff action.
What Mick said.
Okay, do we have a second on that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, we'll take a roll call vote.
Councilmember Hellberg,
Yes.
Councilmember McCauley,
Yes.
Councilmember Lohman,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Douglas,
No.
Mayor Burris.
Yes. All right, item passes. We will move now to public comment. This is the part of the agenda for comments on items that are not included on tonight's agenda. So you could come up to the podium, talk about anything in the world that you want. But if it is for an item that we have further down on the agenda, please refrain from your comments until we get to that item so that it can be part of that discussion. Would anybody like to make a public comment at this time? Please.
Nick Dion, Canyon Way. I was wondering if council knows anything about the little camp setup that is right past the tire store on Canyon Way.
Mike, you got an update on that?
Short answer, yes, we are very aware.
We've looked into it a little bit. I understand the California Fish and Game has a action pending against it. But at this point, we're leaving that up to Fish and Game to prosecute.
So he's still there, living there?
I haven't been out there in the last couple of days, but my understanding is it's, yes, it is.
I see it changing all the time. Sometimes I see people there, sometimes things in the area, but they're making more and more space around their trailer to, I don't know if they're trying to make it so they're able to stay there longer or something, but that was my only concern.
We'll make a point to go out there again and potentially work with the sheriff's department to look into that.
Thank you.
That camper is on private property. The sheriff's office has no jurisdiction for that.
Okay.
That is up to the city with
Okay.
your code enforcement to take care of that.
Okay,
So let's go ahead and start the nuisance abatement issue
okay,
process.
we will.
I think we're all supportive there.
Sure.
All right. Anyone else for public comment this evening? Anything online?
Well, we did have a hand raised. Jane Gallagher, did you have a comment?
It was on Zoom, correct?
She is.
Okay.
Jane, can you hear us okay? Would you like to move on?
We can move on for now, and then if Jane does come back on, I'll go ahead and reopen the public comment section at that time. Tim, go ahead.
Hi, Tim Ryan, City of Colfax. I was just wondering for the closed session. I know in the past, council members always showed up maybe a half hour, 45 minutes before the open session. And then the council meeting started at 6 o'clock. And has there been a change to that? And I know tonight was the first time I've ever seen it go this long. It is not usual, but it does seem like I noticed a few people actually drive off and did not come back. So I was just checking to see if there was.
We did change that in 2018.
Oh, okay.
So in 2019, we made that change. However, one of the things that we are able to do when appropriate is we can sometimes move the closed session to the end of the meeting.
Yeah.
So, in cases, and this has happened where we have a very large crowd that shows up, we try to accommodate that by moving it to the end.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, great.
But that is situationally an option.
Yeah. And like I say, this was very unusual tonight to have it go that long, but yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Tom Ponham. I'm a resident of the city, and I want to talk about our old hotel over here. There it sits. I moved here in 1980, and it's been sitting there ever since. And I just want to rattle your cage a little bit and remind you, we've been trying to get something happening with that property. And on a similar note, I've been walking a lot through town. The sidewalk that goes right by there has like a 4-foot drop off, and it's just a sheer drop off. And there's even like a pole down there that if somebody fell into that, is that the city liability? Is that their liability? And I think the city needs to address that. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Mike, do you mind giving a report on the status with the hotel during your report?
Sure.
Thank you. All right. Any luck with Jane?
Jane, did you want to provide comment? It doesn't look like she's providing comment at this time.
Okay. We'll just be sure to circle back if she is available for comment. All right. We'll go ahead and close public comment at this time, and we'll move to item 8, which is the council and staff reports. We'll go ahead and start with Sean.
All right. Had the Pulaski County Flood Control District meeting, got to introduce Caroline McCulley as my alternate, and pretty uneventful meeting. Just went over their procedures and their strategic plan for flood control, and kind of got a little bit of information on what their services are and what they do. Also had over the last month the Placer Sierra Fire Safe Council meeting. We welcomed a new OES coordinator, Eliana Blackman, to OES. Got an update on Firewise communities and some work that's being done around Forest Hill, and received an update from Team Rubicon. They've been in the area doing work for the property owners that were affected by the river fire. They did a 12-day operation and removed hazard trees from private properties. They removed over 9,000 cubic feet of material from the burn scar. And they have a few more days planned thanks to a grant funding provided by CAL FIRE. If anybody knows anybody that still needs help clearing their property or anything like that, they can get a hold of the Team Rubicon by contacting the Connecting Point office in Grass Valley, or calling 211 in Placer County. They also wanted to give a big thanks to the Sierra Vista Community Center for putting them up for 12 days inside the community center and giving them a place to stay. That was free. Just wanted to touch on a couple of fuel reduction projects that are going on. It's been secured for a fuel reduction project with Caltrans. And between Caltrans and Placer RCD and that fuel reduction project will be working east and westbound shoulders of the freeway from Colfax to Whitmore Grade. And hopefully be continuing in a second phase up to at least Yuba Gap, where it turns to Granite. They're expecting the work to hopefully start before the end of this year, and probably take up to 2 to 3 years to complete all the work. But they're going to start here in Colfax and start working their way up. So that'll be a huge added protection layer for us against the commercial vehicle fires. It's been a long process to get that going, but it's finally got its funding, and it'll just take a little while to get through Caltrans approval processes. Let's see. That's all I had, except for the next Fire Safe Council meeting is going to be tomorrow night here, 6 p.m. at City Hall. Thanks.
Perfect. Kim? Okay, let's go ahead and take it real quick, and then we'll go back to reports.
We have a late public comment here. I believe this is regarding 6A from Jane Gallagher. It states, wouldn't it be better to have adults purchase from a dispensary with tested products and quality than off the street and possibly fentanyl-laced marijuana? Sacramento appears to be profiting from the taxes their distributors are taking from deliveries in the Colfax area. Folks driving under the influence are inexcusable, no matter what they misuse or age or driver's license status. Please permit adult and medicinal cannabis sales in Colfax.
Thank you. All right, Kim?
Yes, about a week ago, I, along with all the other council members and the city manager, attended a training session put on by William Jessup. And it's about the third or fourth time I've done this, but this was the best one ever. We all learned something. We all walked away from it saying we actually learned something. I'm glad we attended. And on the opening day of school, I, along with Trinity, are the liaisons with the school system. And I went there and met a couple of teachers, and just to let them know in a proactive way that we're ready to, get some kind of programs going rather than waiting for them to come to us. I just wanted to show them that we're an active city council and we want to work with them. Thank you.
Just to echo what he said, it was an outstanding presentation. I want to thank Mike personally for putting that together. Pete was outstanding. He was a great presenter. He talked about public policy in general. He went over the Brown Act in ways that I had no idea could apply, especially regarding public media, and talked about ethical decision-making. And it was a very, very powerful presentation. I enjoyed it. I learned a lot. Secondly, Sean and I attended a downtown meeting for the connectivity and the Main Street and the thinking about what could happen downtown. It was a great meeting. Emmanuel was there as well, very educational. And then I attended essentially the same presentation here where there were people from the public. And I was happy and surprised to see about a dozen people that were very interested in the downtown. They contributed ideas, and I can see a way forward. I believe strongly in the signage in particular. I support the downtown. And just to repeat, one of the simple ideas that I thought really had a lot of merit is somebody suggested that rather than have two one-way streets that circle the little park that's right down the street here, that we instead have a two-way street on the railroad side, giving up some of the park and then extend the park on the library side. And I think it makes it a lot safer. It opens up opportunities. And again, just an idea from the public that I thought had a lot of merit. So I'm having hopes for the downtown. I'm going to suggest to the chamber the next time I get to a meeting that they have a brainstorming session and that they basically set up a committee. We don't have any public commissions in town, and I think a good start would be a committee of people that really cared about downtown to start contributing to ideas like branding and how to direct people here, et cetera. And then I spoke quite a while with Amy Andrews over at the chamber, who's very enthusiastic about the same thing. I'm fully in support of downtown. There's a huge opportunity there. It's an empty canvas. We just need some people to get together and make some things happen. And that covers it.
All right, thank you. Carolyn?
It's been a month of research. I have listened to multiple of the SACOG meetings from the last several months. It's an interesting group to listen to, without a doubt. And it's quite eye-opening to see that there's these 6 counties that we have to work with, and half of them have no connection whatsoever to our lifestyle up here, and they make too many decisions. They try to force lots of things on us, and it's been very enlightening. I enjoyed listening to them talk about how to get people to stop driving their kids to school and how they needed to get the kids to school without the parents driving them. Yet nobody mentioned the fact that they took the buses away from us, or they don't have, safe sidewalks or anything to walk on, because their focus was that they should just get on the buses or ride their bikes. And that doesn't work in our world, unfortunately. So it's been very interesting to see the disconnect between some of the counties. The meeting I attended with Sean on the flood control was apparently the perfect meeting, because it was like flood control management 101. There was a full breakdown of what they do and what they're responsible for. And so it was a good intro into that one. And then I actually did attend the Chamber's board of directors meeting that they had a couple weeks ago. They've got a lot of ideas that they're kicking around to try to bring some liveliness to downtown and different activities that they want to run with. And it was kind of cool to be able to sit there and watch them brainstorm and come up with some good ideas. So that's about it.
Awesome. Thank you. I have nothing to report tonight. Mike?
Yes. I have a few items to speak to tonight. One is we did a little research on water line breaks in the community. As you know, we had over the weekend a water line break at the Best Western Hotel, and the last one we had in the same area was back in November of 2022 at the Arco station. So just a number of little facts related to these breaks, because we wanted to see if there's any connection between those, and apparently there is not. But just wanted to ensure the community that both PCWA and the city, through its inspectors, inspect all water main services up into and including the water meters and the backflow preventers. That includes our staff, Unico, Bureau Veritas, which is our plan checking firm, and others assigned to each project. water pipes are typically in an open trench installation, and once the pipe is laid, backfill is laid centered on the midpoint of the pipe, typically 18-foot lengths, and the joints are exposed for leak detection and inspection. Pipes less than 4 inches in diameter typically use pipe cement to connect pipe segments. Pipes 4 inches and larger typically use gasketed joints with thrust blocks, joint restraints, and/or mechanical joint fittings. And the two failures were essentially those fittings of those pipes 4 inches and then larger that failed. Unfortunately, it was things like that happen, and they try to do their best to prevent them. But both of those occurred because those joints and those joint restraints failed in both of those situations. They were different subcontractors. So there was no connection between the contractors for both projects. However, our staff is going to, take a closer look at those, given we've had two pipe breakages, which does affect the entire community. And hopefully we can prevent those from happening in the future. But we look for some connection or reason why these happened. But there really is no connection. These are two accidents that happen. In talking to some of my fellow city managers and other communities, it is quite a common occurrence. But in the fact of Colfax, because it's a small community, it affects the entire community. So, we look forward to working harder on this in the future and doing our best to ensure this might not or this may not happen again. But there is a potential with this new construction for this to happen. Is there any questions on that? Okay. A couple other updates. We did turn in our draft plans for the CDBG roadway project. It's going to be updating a number of our streets, doing some resurfacing throughout the community. We successfully submitted those plans to the Department of Housing and Community Development for their review. Happy to report that we are staying on the engineer's estimate for the project. That's not to say we're still going to have to go out to bid at some point. And we're hopeful that we stay on that estimate, but given inflation, that is certainly a risk at this point. But at least at this point, we're staying within that budget and working very hard with our engineering firm GHD to get those projects designed and ready to go for potential or for a bid this spring, and hopefully start construction in late spring or early summer. On our I&I sewer project, that project is coming along very well with work on multiple streets in the community. This week, for example, they're working on Forest Hill, doing quite a bit of construction. That's to replace, to line sewer lines to prevent infiltration of stormwater so that our sewage treatment plant functions adequately and has enough capacity. We're also replacing, items as we go along, whether they be water lines or water meters or that type of thing. And it's going very well. We had a resident come into the counter this morning that, was happy. He was happy with the progress and why we were doing it as a needed item. He was concerned, that his street is being torn up, which it is quite a bit, but he lived on Forest Hill, which is actually one of the streets that we're going to be replacing or resurfacing with the CDBG fund. So he was very happy about that. He's also, we're getting good reports from the community that we do a lot of outreach, before each street goes under construction. So McGuire and Hester go out and do door hangers. They knock on people's doors. They tell them we're coming and give them a heads up before we do the construction on that street, so that their people are aware that this is going to happen. So that's so far going very well. Also happy to report on that same project that, we had a bit of a budget issue with that project. We received verbal confirmation that we were going to have our budget augmented so that we would have enough money to complete that project. we're happy to report that that we're probably going to get that sooner than we expected in October. So, won't count our chickens quite yet, but it's going to hopefully happen about a month ahead of schedule, which we have the, $500,000 buffer that the council created to make sure that we didn't get ahead of ourselves. And it looks like we're not going to need to get even close to that. Last couple things, we did replace the shade structure at the park. That shade structure lasted about 5 years in total since the original installation. It cost originally about $11,000 to install the two shade structures. Unfortunately, they were damaged in last year's storm, and thus we had a replacement cost of about $5,800 to put those, just the cloth part of that back up. We are going to take a look at whether or not we can deinstall those every year. We don't quite have the equipment to do that. We'd have to rent that. So we're kind of doing a little cost benefit analysis on whether taking that down is worth it, or should we just replace those when they wear out. So the last thing that you just asked me to talk about tonight is the status of the historic Colfax Hotel. Coincidentally, I've been asking our building inspector, Joe Sweet, to give me an update on that project. Where we last left that is we received plans from them to improve the hotel in total. Those plans were submitted at the end of last year. We completed our first plan check in late January of this year, and we're waiting for a response back from them on those comments. It's our understanding, and I haven't spoken directly to Leaf Lowry, the project proponent. I plan to in the next couple of weeks, but my understanding is they have multiple projects going on in Placer County, and are concentrating on those other projects at this time. We're going to try to get with them a schedule to update their plans and move forward with the project. We will look into the hole that Mr. Parnham brought up and make sure that it's not a hazard, and if it is a hazard, we'll make sure it gets rectified. And that, actually, one last thing. One of the things that we, in working with our city clerk, we're having a bit of an issue with is the comments coming in on Facebook. And Facebook is a viable method for us to broadcast to the community, and we're looking into other methods to do that, which include cable TV and potentially streaming on our website as an alternative. But one of the things that we're afraid we're going to miss without a great amount of staff time is recording all the comments that come in on Facebook. So we're proposing to the council, unless we hear different, we would like to turn off the commenting feature of Facebook, because the problem is if we miss a comment, we can be legally challenged on those comments. But we still have Facebook available. Just if persons wanted to comment, they can get on Zoom or can email in and provide comments. But the commenting feature of Facebook is very problematic at this time, and we don't really have the staff we don't have the staff available to go through and each video multiple times to make sure we have all the comments. It's a great amount of staff time to do that. And there is no we've looked in any automated ways to do that, and there is none.
No, I would commend staff for how long we have continued to make this work. But there's some really serious challenges that have come up with this, specifically, the matter of the Brown Act and having a thorough public record, because folks are able to go back and delete their comments later on Facebook, which is problematic for the public record. So the proposal that we had discussed was to potentially make sure that we included in the description on the posting the link to Zoom. So anybody who does tune in and is viewing has that link readily available so they can click it, join in via Zoom if they want to make comments, add add any input. That way it's not restrictive and people don't feel that they've been cut off from their opportunity to participate.
Yeah, and specifically state that if you want to comment, this is how you do it.
Yep.
Yeah.
We'll do
As
that.
long as you're doing that, I think we're covered.
So I'm okay with that if we want to direct staff to move in that
Can we
direction.
provide informal direction, since it's not like an action item?
Yeah, I think we can do that unless you tell us otherwise. So,
Yeah.
and we'll make those notifications on the screen so people know to do it, what to do with Zoom or email or some other way for coming in public. So.
Yeah, we can just have a template we paste into the description, so it's right there. Any concerns?
No concerns. I'm just curious about the street work that's going on alongside the hotel. Is that strictly a Colfax project or is that something they're doing?
That's the I&I sewer project that McGuire and Hester is doing. Yeah.
Any
That's
other
all I have.
questions on Mike's report? Awesome. All right, well, with that, we'll close the reports and move to item 9A. I think this is going to be your item here. And this is the draft accessory dwelling unit regulations and zoning code cleanup. We're going to take a presentation here from staff.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council, members of the public. My name is Emmanuel Urso. I'm the director of the planning department. This item before you is just a overview, introduction of code changes that we will be bringing before you in the form of an ordinance. But before we do bring the ordinance forward, we'd like to give the council and the public an opportunity to chime in on some of the changes we're contemplating. Next. So we have two primary land use policy documents. Our general plan, it's the Constitution for Development of the Community. It's the document from which all other land use policies flow. The zoning code is one of those documents that implement the general plan. It's a tool to implement the general plan. It's required to be consistent with the general plan. And it establishes all the land use policies, the nitty gritty about maximum building heights, development standards, specific uses. Next. We are at the tail end of a comprehensive update of the general plan and updating the zoning ordinance to conform to the changes to the general plan is appropriate at this time. In addition, there have been changes to state law that are driving most of the changes that we're going to be making to our ordinance. One of the big changes that we made to the general plan was update of the housing element. The housing element is one of the 7 mandatory elements or chapters of the general plan. There was a specific time frame under state law by which we were required to adopt an update to the housing element. That was done July of 2 years ago in July. And so some of the changes are being made to implement some of the policies of the general plan of the housing element. Most of the other changes to the general plan are technical in nature, the very few minor or substantive changes that are being made. And so that document should be before the council for adoption. I'm hoping by October of this year, so in a couple of months. Next. Part of the general plan is the housing element, as I mentioned. Through the housing element process, the state allocates each region a total number of housing units that are to be accommodated. So we need to have zoning in place to accommodate a certain number of housing units. A number is provided to each region. So the SACOG region got a large number, and then each jurisdiction in the region, so each county and city in the SACOG region had an allocation of their regional housing needs allocation, or their RHNA. So for Colfax, our RHNA was 97 units. So what we're required to do is show that there is capacity in our zoning to accommodate at least development of 97 units over the 8-year planning period, which runs through 2029. The city has more than enough capacity. So any of the changes that we're making to the zoning code really are intended to help streamline the development review process for residential development so we can achieve these SRENA numbers. Next, please. Changes to the zoning code will kind of a few categories. One is reflect changes to the general plan and encourage housing development, as I mentioned. A few changes we're making in the general plan is we're creating a mixed use land use designation. We currently have a residential commercial designation. So it's really more of a name change than a substantive change. But we're coming up with proposing two mixed use zoning districts. Mixed use 1 would apply just to Main Street. Mixed use 2 would apply to the areas behind Main Street and along segments of South Auburn. We're also making a few minor changes to the open space district and we have a public, or it's called a special public district or service district. It's a mouthful. I can't even say it. We're going to change the name to public semi-public district. Probably the biggest change is modifications to comply with state requirements for accessory dwelling units. And I'll get into more detail of that next. And then there's several cleanup changes that we're making. One of the attachments to the staff report list all the code sections that we're working on to update. And there'll be a few more than that as well, I believe. So, and then we're also going to be changing our land use application forms, posting new forms on the city's website, making them the PDF fillable form so folks can actually submit the applications online. We already accept as an option payment online. And so folks will continue to be able to do that. Next. So I briefly touched on the mixed use districts. Really the difference between the MU1 and the MU2 is in the mixed use 1 district, the ground floor street fronting spaces are intended to be pedestrian oriented types of uses, restaurants, retail shops, and then allow housing, offices, other non kind of pedestrian driven uses, either at the ground floor, but spaces at the back and on the second floor. So it'd be a more of a vertical mixed use configuration. In the MU2 district, there's not a requirement to have the ground floor street frontage that's designed to be pedestrian interactive. You could have either a vertical or a horizontal mix of commercial or residential uses and public serving uses. Next. The public quasi-public zoning district, it replaces the public services district or the special public services district. It's a new land use designation, but it's more of a name change than anything else. We have an open space district, but it only applies to the corporation yard. So, which doesn't make sense. So we're changing the zoning of the corporation yards to the quasi-public district. And then we're creating a parks zoning district. Basically it's the Lions Children's Park, which is currently zoned residential, would be zoned parks. We have an agricultural zone in the property, in the city, one property. It's a 26 or so acre property. It's at the far south end of the city. Back in the 90s, early 90s, the city council amended the general plan land use designation to change that to low density residential. The zoning code the zoning map was never changed to be consistent with the zoning code. So we're correcting that. That is the only agriculturally zoned property in the city. So once we remove that zone from the zoning map, we would then also remove the agricultural zone district from the zoning code. And then the residential commercial overlay that would be removed from the zoning map. We have the new mixed use district. And while we have the overlay on the map, there are no development standards that go along with it in the zoning code. So it's kind of a meaningless zoning district at this point, or overlay district. Next. So accessory dwelling units are been a topic of the state legislature for several years now, actually going back to the early 90s. We had to amend, all cities had to amend what they're called second dwelling units at the time. In 2019, the state adopted about 30 bills that relate to housing. Several of them were directly related to accessory dwelling units, including the ones listed on the screen here. Next. What the state basically is doing is requiring cities to, preempting cities' ability to regulate development of accessory dwelling units. And the idea is to encourage cities and property owners to provide a housing option. And this is an option that the state legislature deemed appropriate. And so there are standards that address all of these topic areas. I'll briefly go through them. In the table in the staff report also follows these. So you can also follow along the staff report starting on page, it's on page 2 and 3. Next. So the state says that we cannot restrict the size on which, we cannot have the minimum lot size on which second dwelling units or accessory dwelling units are permitted. Under our current standards, the city only allows second dwelling units on parcels 7,500 square feet or larger. We can no longer do that. Also, the state says that we cannot restrict ADUs to less than 850 square feet or 1,000 square feet if they have more than one bedroom. And then in terms of parking, if the ADU is going into an existing space that's being converted, such as garage or a portion of an other accessory structure that's not a dwelling unit, we cannot require replacement parking. If parking is required, only one space can be required for the ADU. We cannot require parking if it's within a half a mile of transit. Our train station downtown counts as transit. If it's in the historic district, we cannot require parking. As I said, if it's part of an existing or accessory structure, we cannot require parking. And parking can be tandem, so one parking space in front of the other. Next. We cannot require setbacks greater than 4 feet for an interior side or rear property line. We can require front yard setbacks that are consistent with our existing standards. We cannot restrict height to less than 16 feet. We cannot place a restriction on the number of bedrooms, and we cannot charge impact fees for units less than 750 square feet. Except for school district, the school district can charge fees on units over 500 square feet. And then fees need to be proportional to the fees charged for the primary residence. We can continue to charge the monthly sewer fees, which I believe is 0.8 EDUs for a second dwelling unit. Next. So there are a few categories of ADUs. So they're in single family lots. You can have an attached ADU, and that can either be a dwelling or an accessory dwelling unit or what's called a junior accessory dwelling unit. You can have one of each. So technically you can have 3 units on the property. Junior ADU cannot exceed 500 square feet. They could be a detached ADU. And then in the multifamily district, again, you can have attached ADUs, and existing space can be converted to an ADU, or one can develop 2 new ADUs, detached ADUs in the multifamily zone. If they're attached, they cannot exceed 25% of the existing number of units that they have, but no less than 1 additional unit or ADU. Next. I think we just covered this, so let's go into the next slide. Okay, so that, oh, you skipped one. Go back one. Oh, maybe it was the one before that. Oh, there we go. Oh, okay, sorry. So just to summarize, we're updating some of the code cleanup, and this is in the attachment Really, it's to remove internal consistencies, streamline the review process. There's a lot of typographical errors, missing or incorrect internal references in the document. So that sort of thing is primarily what the cleanup is of the code. Most of the changes are focused on the residential section of the code. However, there may be interest in addressing some of the other sections of the code. We did recently have an application for design review for a self-storage facility. Our code allows in the industrial zone and in the commercial highway zone self-storage facilities by right. So there's no discretion that the city council has. There is design review, but the use itself is allowed by right. And it's allowed with an administrative permit in the commercial retail zone. That could be an example of a change that the council might be interested in making that's not directly related to residential development. So with that, I conclude my presentation and available for any questions the council may have.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Do we have any immediate questions from council?
I had a quick question. The height being 16 feet is prohibited. Is that to allow 2-story?
You could not develop 2 stories within 16 feet, not once you factor in the structural elements required for the floor and the roof and the minimum floor to ceiling heights of the building code.
Okay.
Oh, Larry, go ahead.
I have a question regarding the corporation yard. What is the zoning today and what is it being changed to?
So it's a residential zoning district, one of the single family residential districts, and it's being changed to public, quasi-public.
No.
Was it an open
quasi-public?
space?
What does that mean?
Didn't you say it was open
Oh,
space?
maybe it's open space.
Yeah,
I can't remember. It's a designation that makes land use that has no relation to what it's currently being used for. So the public, quasi-public zone would apply to parcels. So it would apply to that parcel. It would apply to the community center, the former landfill, and the sewage treatment facility, the wastewater treatment facility.
Some of the people that have been around town a long time can remember when the corporation yard was land that was given to the kids of Colfax, and they had scout meetings and things like that there. And sometime in the past, it became a corporation yard. Is that information just lost in the past, or I mean, I just wonder how that changed. Why did that change? And I'm just not really thinking that's the greatest spot for a corporation yard. It looks like a dump.
Yeah.
So it is a dump, basically.
If the city was interested in changing it to a use such as what you had described as previously been used, that would be allowed under the public, quasi-public.
It would be.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I just had a quick question in regards to the setback. So they're saying it can't be anything more than 4 feet. What is our current requirement?
For accessory dwelling units, for second dwelling units, I'm not certain. I believe so. In the R1-5 zone, it's 5 feet, 6 feet for the primary residence. I believe an accessory dwelling unit would be the same under existing standards or second dwelling unit, but I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay, I was just curious how much it was going to start.
What the difference would be.
Yeah, because I mean, that's going to impact people's lives, how all of a sudden people are going to get closer. Because of course, these standards are written for metropolitan areas to encourage more housing versus what we normally are used to. So I was just curious how much more cozy they're trying to make us be.
I find it interesting. They rolled back all the restrictions on ADUs, but for regular housing, they made Title 24, hell on earth. So that's great. Let's shove everybody in little boxes.
I just like the fact that they're basically forcing us to add extra housing and for rentals basically, and yet a homeowner's ability to deal with those renters is near impossible in California.
They're encouraging landlord lifestyle.
Yeah,
it's wrong. I think at this time, Emmanuel, if you want to stand by, there might be questions from the public. I'm going to go ahead and open the floor for public comment. If anybody would like to come up and ask questions or make a comment on the item. Come on up.
Thanks, Council. Jim Dion again. Excuse me, I was just wondering if, the housing is a problem, of course, we all know that, and people are hurting for money right now. Is there a possibility that these ADU units can waive the cost of construction? Like in the county, when there's an ADU, they allow you to, there are 2 or 3 different types that they have, and they're already approved. Now, you do still have to get a foundation person to do that, and the sprinklers and the solar panels and stuff, but it would just, I think, help people if they had a way to come in, and Colfax had already approved the plans for these ADUs, so they don't have to go through that process.
Are you saying like a pre-approved plan sets that if you pick one of the batch, it waives most of your permit fees?
Yeah, well, that too, but basically just the construction costs. If you say you can have an ADU unit, they're going to have to hire someone to do the plans for that, but if they're already approved, then it would save a lot of money and time.
Emmanuel, can we look into copying kind of the cookie cutter structure that Placer County already has with that? I don't want to do anything that is going to cost people more money or make things more restrictive, for homeowners. But if we can, I think that that's a great proposal, Jim.
Might help a little.
Yes, Placer County and several other agencies have pre-approved plans. Now they may not work on someone's particular property. So that does save property owners the cost of hiring an architect and engineer to prepare those plans. They would still need a site plan to show that, it's going to fit on the property. And then also the development impact fees are also waived. So there's some, substantial savings there as well.
Perfect. All right. Do we have any other comments?
There's nothing online.
Okay, I'll bring it back to council. Do we have any further discussion? All right, well, if everyone's in agreement, I think that we feel good about directing staff with the addition of, let's take a look at what the county is doing with the pre-approved plan sets. Kim, did you have a thought? Sound like you did. Sorry.
Ready to say aye.
All right, so it sounds like we have our direction. With that, we'll go ahead and move to item 9B. This is the Colfax Railroad Days item. So I'm going to invite Fred and Renee Abbott to come on up and give their presentation here.
Council, Mayor, Fred Abbott, Colfax Railroad Days. We're happy to tell you that my diligent wife has done her all-time best. We look like we're going to have well over 80 craft vendors. Colfax is going to bust at the seams. We have 11 food vendors right now. We may still have more. We've been dealing with Union Pacific, and they have said that they will bring some equipment up. They're not, other than the fire train and an engine, they're not committing to much else because everything's in maintenance right now. They can't get the snow plows done. They can't get the spreaders done in time for railroad days. They're also having a problem with the flooding that's down in Southern California. Last year it was the strike. Year before it was fires. However, we have been having really good conversations with their public relations people, and she has been more than energetic about getting stuff up here. We're still going to have the Black Flag Gang. We have the Mormon group, the Mormon militia from Coloma. They'll be there with their cannons. And speaking of loud noises, we will be posting signs, warning signs, downtown Railroad Street and by the CR Market, letting people know that there's going to be noise. gunfights, cannons, whips. And if you have issues with things like that, take precautions. And we hope you still come and have a good time at Railroad Days.
And Fred, don't you also have a detailed, sorry, Fred?
We will also have handouts that will have a map of where everything is located. And it'll have on the other side, we'll have the events that are going to be going on and the times of the different performances. The theater will have a model train set up in it. They will show silent railroad movies, and the Placer Repertory Theater will be doing three scenes. They're going to be three performances of the history of Colfax. We will also have Skylar Colfax will be walking the streets and doing his usual speech making and not saying anything. So he will take a break because he's the guy that fires the cannon. So we'll have a break from that. We have 6 model train setups, one of which is going to be on a flat car. The sides roll up and the train setup is already there. Got mountains. It is really impressive. The Lego train group is going to be back. They will be up at the chamber in front of the station. The Chinese Memorial will be there Saturday. They will be in the train in the meeting room next to the chamber with their video presentation and a model of the monument. We'll have a quilt show down at the Luminaris area. The Enchanted Forest, Exotic Animal Rescue will be down in the Arbor Park. Face painters, balloon artists, and a lot of local entertainment in the lot of art.
Wonderful.
Any questions? Oh, and I want to thank the city council for their wonderful donation. I haven't seen the check yet, but their wonderful donation.
So on that note, what we do have on our agenda tonight is to discuss and consider the Colfax Railroad Days Inc.'s request for $2,500 to fund the general event cost. So what we do need to do is take public comment, but I think that all 5 of us are ready to go ahead and move the motion. So Fred, if you don't mind standing by just in case anybody has any questions for you. We're going to open up to public comments. If anyone wants to say anything or ask anything, they can.
All right.
All right. Do we have any public comment on this topic? Maybe anything online?
There's no one online.
All right. Well, we're back to council for a motion.
I move that we do everything that Fred says. We allocate the money, the funding.
Okay.
It's gonna sound and that if that's what we're doing, but yeah.
All right. So I've got a motion from Kim, a second from Larry, right? Okay, perfect. All right. All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Those abstained? Seeing none, motion passes. We are looking forward to the event, Fred.
Yeah, I do have one thing to add. We've put together a hell of an event. We need the public to show up.
Yes.
Tell your friends, tell people that even aren't your friends. Bring everybody down.
And somebody shut the weatherman up. We don't need any more weather issues this year.
No fires, no weather issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're working with Fred to get KCRA to come out the day before to do a on-scene broadcast to announce the event too.
Oh, perfect. All right, with that, we'll move to item 9C. This should be a quick and easy one, right? I think this is just a name change to one of our committees.
Name function.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's
yeah, go ahead, Sean.
Councilman Loman was proposed this, yes.
I was just asking that we change our ISO ad hoc committee that was mostly focused on our every 5-year ISO review that basically handles some of the insurance related issues that insurance companies look at for fire protection. So we could change that to encompass all of our emergency services contracts and the emergency services that are being provided to the city by the county and state.
Yep. Any comments, discussion? All right. Any public comment on this item? I'd be surprised if there was. All right, bringing it back for a motion. I'll move approval.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, those abstained, motion passes. All right, we're gonna move to go to the order. And we'll start with Sean.
Nothing for tonight.
Okay. Tim?
I just wanted to comment that in 10 years I've been on the council, I've been on the losing vote many times. And so what I've learned from that is a quote from Winston Churchill, that success means going from one failure to the next with enthusiasm.
I love that quote.
All right, Larry? You got anything tonight? All right, Carolyn?
I'll keep it short, but I would like to be able to open a conversation at some point with council about seeing how we can have, whether it's a council member or a staff member at all of our community events, a little booth, little comment booth, so the community can stay more in touch with us.
Okay.
So.
Perfect. Okay, I don't have a lot tonight. I was dead serious about an ordinance for fining drivers for the brake fires. If it's just gonna keep happening, I think it needs to hurt. So I don't know what our limitations are under the law as far as how much we can fine or anything like that. We might need to bring it back for discussion, but I'd like to discuss that. So if I have the support of a few more council members.
I think it's something worth discussing, but my question is, how much control do we have over what happens on the interstate? Because that's where all the fires fall in. And so even though those fires are within the city our city limits, it's on the highway, which we can't touch. So I don't know if there's any roundabout way.
We can't affect the highway code. We can't affect the California vehicle code.
But how?
But if they are within our jurisdiction, we can find them.
So in the past, the fire department actually looked at system to impose fees and fines on people that were from out of town that had emergency incidents for to pay fees, or if they were caused a fire or whatever. We had a preset determined set of fees, but the council.
Well, how do we extend that line to include Dutch Flat and Alta? Because that's where more of those happen than actually in our area.
The county to copy our ordinance.
Well, I think that should be the ultimate goal right there, because there's so very few of them happen right within our lines. Most of them are up above. So
let's agendize it and let's invite Cindy to the meeting.
Well, I'm going to be meeting with the city managers group this week. I'll raise the issue and see if there's interest in doing something larger.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Yeah,
we can do it.
I know for District 5, I know Placer County, this is just, we got to nip it in the butt. This can't keep happening without us at least doing something about it. The only other thing was I just wanted to make sure we officially gave direction to staff as a council to pursue the nuisance abatement for that encampment on private property by the tire.
Yep.
So as long as everybody's supportive, do we have an official direction to staff on that?
go for it.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Larry, did you have a question?
No.
Okay, perfect. That's all I've got. Do you have anything?
I do not.
All right. This is the time on the agenda where if anybody would like to make a comment specifically commenting on the good of the order and what we discussed, you may come up and make a comment. Do we have any public comment at this time? All right, seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and close public comment and we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.